it's Dr. Kristy Taylor, and today I'm really excited because I'm going to be introducing you to our signature DEIA framework. We call it the WORxK Solutions Rational Emotive Behavioral Therapy DEI framework because if you've been following me for a while, then you know that rational emotive behavioral therapy is my cognitive approach to coaching. It is how I coach all of my clients because I believe as a career coach, it's not about simply helping you to find a job, right? It's about helping you to overcome self-limiting beliefs so that you can achieve your career goals. So if you're a social impact professional out there and you're struggling in your career, reach out to me and let's talk. Schedule a free appointment. The first appointment is always free. But in this particular video, we're going to be focusing a little bit on organizational resiliency and individual resiliency. And I want to talk a little bit about the WORxK Solutions Rational Emotive Behavior DEI framework. It is a six-fold framework. I'm not going to go too in-depth, but I just want to walk you through the process, right? Because when we talk about being able to overcome self-limiting beliefs, there's in the DEI space in particular, even when working with organizations, sometimes when we talk about equity and inclusion, we have to reflect on ourselves individually and talk about those hidden biases, right? And things that we don't even know that we don't know about ourselves. So my approach to that is utilizing a framework. I'm not going to teach a 10-step program or in-depth course about it, but for years I've taught these cultural competency courses, and I've written a lot of curriculum on cultural competency and resiliency, particularly in the healthcare space, because as healthcare providers, we have to have that understanding to be able to treat patients of all different diverse backgrounds. But this applies to any organization that you are at, and particularly in the social impact sector, where we have made the commitment to making a difference in the lives of other people and engaging in our community. There is no room for unconscious bias, right? But it starts with just having a conversation. And so this framework, let me introduce you to it. It is a 6-process framework or 6-fold framework. And I'm not even going to say that these are steps that build upon each other, but it focuses on creating a rational understanding through promoting a rational understanding of diversity by encouraging individuals to recognize and challenge their irrational beliefs and biases. So when we talk about unconscious biases, that's like literally one of the first things that we do, right? But we also incorporate in that, and this is where you're going to see the rational emotive, just because I started with rational, right? But any basis of any DEI framework is going to also start with the discussion on the unconscious bias. We just call it creating a rational understanding as a component of our framework. And then the next piece of that is emotional resilience, because we want to equip individuals with the emotional resiliency skills to navigate challenging conversations related to diversity, equity, and inclusion. We want to make sure that we have these conversations without the guilt. So when you see our trainings on DEIA, we really foster conversations without the guilt, because we all have some level of unconscious bias. It doesn't mean that you're inherently racist, or it just means that you don't know what you don't know about yourself. And if you don't have that exposure or experience, then we at least need to be able to have a conversation about it so we can bring that awareness to the light. And immediately that doesn't mean that there's going to be a shift in the mindset. It just means that there's exposure, because if you have unconscious bias, it doesn't mean that you are racist or anything like that. It just means you didn't know or may not have a certain exposure to a culture. And so we have to focus on not only cultural competency, but cultural resiliency, right? And being able to support people no matter how they are, different groups, ethnicities, backgrounds. It doesn't matter, because the goal is to treat every human with love and respect and dignity. That walks through our door as social impact professionals and as professionals in the workplace, period. The other piece of that is behavioral accountability. So we've created this rational understanding, we're supporting you with emotional resilience, because again, these build on each other, but then some of them are going to be like ongoing, right? It's an ongoing process. Behavioral accountability, where we'll cultivate a culture of behavioral accountability. So particularly when I'm working with organizations, I'm going to ask those questions, right? So we've had this great workshop. We've talked a lot about all of the things that you want to change and identify the unconscious bias. And we've had these conversations, but how are we going to take accountabilities for ourselves as individuals when we're out not in the workplace? And how do we take accountability for ourselves and our colleagues when we're in the workplace, especially when we are mission driven and committed to making change, right? We have to be accountable for each other, and we have to make sure that our practices are fair and equitable, and they don't include a level of bias, whether conscious or unconscious. And then once we do those three things, and we focus on the thought transformation, right? And that is part of that conversation we have about accountability, because we want to facilitate thought transformation through those rational emotive behavioral therapy principles. It's almost like if you work in process improvement, asking the 5 whys, we take a deep dive into why it is you think, what you think. And sometimes that can be individual coaching, because not everybody feels comfortable talking about those things out loud. But the goal is to try to create a group setting where you can talk about, hey, maybe I just didn't have this exposure growing up, or this is what I saw every day in the news, and this was not a group that I was exposed to. So I didn't even realize that I was thinking this or behave this way toward people until we had this conversation. And here's what I'm going to do to actually change it. Now, from an organizational standpoint, we can have all these great workshops and conversations, and we can talk about behavioral accountability, but we got to make sure that we're developing leaders who are going to, champion this organizational and individual accountability. So we also work on, part of our approach is inclusive leadership development, where we integrate the rational emotive behavior therapy model and techniques into how we coach leaders to enhance leadership abilities to lead. And if you're working with me as a private client, I'm going to do the same thing, right? I'm going to ask you those questions. And if we're working on professional presence, coaching, or leadership development, whatever skills it is that we've identified that you need to work and improve in and grow, that's this DEIA foundation is always going to serve as a framework to how I approach supporting you as an individually or as an organization. And finally, coaching is not a long-term solution, right? Coaching is just the foundation. And as a coach, I typically, in this type of framework, start off with a workshop for a group of individuals, or a heart-to-heart conversation during a coaching session with a client. It just depends on the situation. But always with that is going to be continuous learning and unlearning and evaluation. So long after the coaching process ends, you have to have a process in place for continuous learning and unlearning and encouraging. And that's why training leaders is so important, right? And equipping leaders with what they need. Now, as a coach, the DEIA framework that I use for rational emotive behavioral therapy is just one approach. I also use an acronym based on my organization, WORK, WORxK. Some of you are probably wondering, like, why is she spelling WORK, WORxK? I spell WORxK because, again, I'm a health scientist. My background is health science. So the RX is we are the remedy. So, the RX typically means we are the prescription to remedy. So if you follow that acronym WORK, that is, we work towards goals, we support open communication, we focus on resilience building, right? Because how do we keep these conversations going and not just make sure that the workshops and things that we do are emotional in the moment, types of confessions, but no changes are implemented. We hold you accountable. And we focus on excellence in performance. That is excellence as capital X, right? That stands for the X in WORxK Solutions. And as part of that commitment to continuous process and learning, we encourage you to keep growing. So we integrate that rational motor behavioral therapy principles into our coaching framework, because we really wholeheartedly believe that DEIA and our rational motor behavioral therapy, you'll hear me say REBT, that this approach fosters emotional resilience. It helps you to challenge your irrational beliefs, and it promotes diversity and inclusion because it focuses on addressing issues of equity and getting to the root cause of anything that maximizes your ability to grow and succeed when you want to change something, whether as an organization or as an individual. So this video was short. There's more information on the WORxSolutions.com website. Now, if you haven't followed us on social media, you can catch us at CareerCoachRx across all social medias. This is where I host my podcast, and all of my career coaching specific related content is posted. Here on the WORxK Solutions channel, we really focus on just me doing content for organizations, and across our 3 service lines for the company. So, but you may see these videos on another site, who knows? But anyway, so tell me what do you think about the framework and our approach, and leave some comments for us and we will respond to them. Thank you.